Welcome to episode 1 of Holy Shift. Adrienne, this has been a long time coming.
It has been. And yes, holy shift. It's as punny and meaningful as it sounds. So I'm so glad that you have joined us for all of these meaningful conversations that we're going to have. Welcome to Holy Shift, the podcast where medicine meets mystery and healing becomes whole.
We're your hosts, Taylor Sappington
and Adrienne Irizarry.
Two clinicians, herbalists, and mystics who believe the old ways and modern medicine were never meant to live apart.
This is a space for the witches in the broom closet, the healers afraid to leave their mark, the world walkers who know they don't fit into the systems they were handed.
Here we go first, sharing our stories, our medicine, and the truth about what it really takes to reclaim your power, your health, and your place in the world.
Because the safest, most radical thing you can be is yourself.
This is your permission.
This is your portal.
This is your holy shift. So I think it's important before we hop into the episodes that are to come, which I'm very excited about, to talk about where the idea of Holy Shift came from. What was the inception point of this podcast?
Yes, a lot of it came out of you and I riffing.
Yeah, we've done many episodes together and we just enjoy conversation.
Yes, and we have similar viewpoints. As practitioners, we see a lot of things that others don't see, and we have really deep, meaningful, multi-level conversations about the healing process and it not just being a series of symptoms and mechanics that you can do in order to change how the body is expressing itself. We look at the deeper layers of, okay, so where is this really truly coming from? Is it what you ate last night or is there more to it? And I love the fact that Taylor and I have always been able to have those conversations that go way into the esoteric and energetic weeds, if you will. And so we've tossed around the idea of how can we co-create something where we get to talk about the cool shit that we love to talk about, which is deep.
Yeah.
We're going deep, guys.
Yeah. Well, and respectfully, I think in this point, at this juncture in my life, I can safely and confidently say that I am coming out of the witch closet, respectfully. And witch has been such a dirty word, right? I imagine many of you listening hear the word witch and you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? Witch. And you imagine like a pointy hat and dark attire and a broom. But the reality of it is if you go back historically, the word witch is actually utilized to describe most medicine women, which I find fascinating. It's almost a derogatory connotation that came when paganism was really dismembered as a collective spiritual practice. And not to point fingers, but Christianity made its way onto the scene.
Yes, St. Thomas Aquinas, which makes me laugh because there's a high school near where I am called St. Thomas Aquinas. And he wrote a treatise that really created the foundation for the handbook that was created to hunt witches. And if you look back at the original text, like there was no negative connotation for wise women or herbal women or medicine women. And there was no evil associated with those trades. As early as the 1500s, women could have their own jobs and hold their own money independent of their husbands. And then as the church, capital C church, started becoming more of a thing in terms of a power conglomerate, then it became a political play. The more
led predominantly by men. And again, I hate to point out a subset of society, but if you look at the history that none of us are taught, it's actually quite daunting.
It's heartbreaking, it's aggravating, it's rage inducing. We're going to do whole episodes on this, guys, so stick around. But, when you look at the history, the word witch, they created a negative connotation. I say they, meaning the patriarchal narrative that came out of the church. Okay. That started saying that things like astrology were not science. And that has been disproven.
Give me my soapbox.
Exactly. So this show is all about the soapbox, like all of these conversations that if you're in the right circles, maybe you're having these conversations. If you're doing the right reading, you might be having these conversations, or you're doing the reading and you have nobody to talk to about it. Where your girl. It is so common. And that's exactly why we wanted to start this show, is we wanted there to be a thought-provoking space to have some of these maybe less than popular conversations, but all backed by history, science, and essentially letting the world know that healing has been honestly a woman's art for centuries.
And we're missing that art today. I wish, if you take nothing else from this episode, we're healing is an art.
It is.
Science is nothing without art.
Oh, I love that. It's so true, though.
It's nothing without art. And the science that we practice today, again, another rabbit hole we will go down, is really not actually science. When you can ask no questions about the information that's being presented, and you can sustain no dialogue that is potentially adversarial to the person that you're discussing, right, the information with, that's not science.
Mm-hmm.
That's
absolutely
dogma.
Well, and you have to think about the medical studies, right?
Yeah.
Who's asking the questions? The studies that we're basing our quote unquote science on are only as good as the questions that are being asked, only as good as the research that is being done. And a lot of the times you just have to follow the money to see who's asking the damn question, because you can make data say all kinds of things. And that's one of those places that Taylor and I go on a regular basis and we talk about, because you can get the research to say whatever you want. And the truth of the matter is there have been truths that have been held in societies since the beginning of time.
We don't have elders here, too, not to just, but you're going down that track. And I think it's really important to recognize that in the Western world, we don't have elders. We don't respect our elderly, right? We don't have elders, and thus tradition, which is really important for collective health from a mental, emotional, spiritual perspective, doesn't exist outside of potentially silos and pockets where certain families have carried traditions forward. But as a collective, we don't have elders. Sorry, I cut you off, but I know that's where you're going.
Absolutely. It makes me think about the book Hunt, Gather, Parent. It's a fabulous book. And I listened to it a while back because I was looking for different sorts of parenting strategies, because I didn't feel like the gentle parenting and I'm not criticizing anybody's parenting style. I just, from my observational experience, I didn't feel like certain approaches that were seen as socially accepted in Western culture were effective. Maybe because I also live in an interracial marriage and my experience is different than my husband's lived experience. And I wanted to see okay, so broaden my horizons, right? And what I found really interesting in that book is we are talking about literally the rest of the world does it differently than we do. We are the only weirdos. We're literally called weird because we're a Western, predominantly white model. And it's completely different than the rest of the world. And we wonder why we have kids that throw tantrums because they're not getting screen time, and teenagers that are completely unhelpful. And it's one of the things that she was talking about in the book is how raising a child from the beginning, these understood social values created helpful teenagers and helpful adults and a society that was more cohesive in terms of caring for multi-generational families. If you look at the Netflix series around Blue Zones, there's a multi-generational familial caretaking aspect because the social part and the passing down of wisdom from elders and that transmission through the family line, not only is it good for the health of the person who lives into their hundreds because they have the social aspect, but that information is being transmitted along the family line and isn't lost. And so we can also lay that same framework over health and well-being. And there's a lot of natural medicine remedies in these cultures that we're referring to also. And in the Western world, we've really lost touch with that. We used to have a connection with it, but the more that the Western world aligned itself with the church, the more we lost that, the more we lost touch with that.
Also, God doesn't exist in a church. I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say something that's a wee bit controversial. And I respect everybody's right to practice religion, but God, capital G, lowercase g, whomever it is that you see as your divine higher power, Spirit, Mother Earth, Gaia, we could interchangeably use all of these terms, right? Doesn't exist in a church. It does not, like he, she, it, however you choose to refer, doesn't exist in a church. And this is why we're creating this podcast, because God forbid I go out on any social media platform and I start talking about how I'm coming to realize as a recovering Catholic, I feel like that will really land with a lot of people.
I am also a recovering Catholic.
That the things that I have been conditioned to believe throughout the duration of my life are not necessarily serving the overarching good of my person or the overarching good of the collective, right? And the more that I unwind, the greater the need is for a safe space to talk about these things. Because again, if I go on my Instagram and I'm like, hey guys, by the way, I've come to the conclusion that God doesn't exist in a church. Health hath no wrath, like I will receive, from a platform where a lot of people are still very much in a place where they do believe that God exists in church. And if that's your belief, by all means, I respect it. But we get to create space for the people who hold different perspective. And that's what this podcast is all about.
I love that. I am convinced that I'm responsible for some of my mother's gray hair because I'm a recovering Catholic. And I used to ask questions when we were in church, like, where are the women? Why is it that there's one dude and where's the mom? I remember asking my mother that question when I was like maybe 7 or 8. And the priest was at the pulpit and he was giving his sermon. And I remember looking at my mother. I remember the very pale color that crossed her face. When I asked her, I was like, well, if there's God, where's his wife? Because
question for a 7-year-old.
Mommies have babies.
Yeah.
I had a younger brother. So like I understood that mommies had babies. So I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I got the shh, the shushing.
You are to be seen and not heard.
Oh gosh, yes. I was definitely raised during that era, which made it
God bless all of you millennials.
Well, and older too. Like Gen X had a lot of that. Yeah.
Is it Gen X or is it Gen Z? Who comes before millennials? I always get this wrong. Gen X. Okay, sorry. I apologize, Gen X. Never mind. Gen Z is a whole different conversation.
Yes, I have one of those Gen Zers in my house. That is a completely different conversation.
So is the alpha generation that's being raised. Like my kid's part of the alpha generation. I'm like, these kids are here to fuck shit up.
Yes, my almost 14-year-old falls in that same category. And it's true. It is. Like, I think their whole mission here is to dismantle what's broken.
Yeah.
But
right in line with the astrology, guys. They are right on time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this whole podcast is a space where Adrienne and I get to unpack because I don't know if this is true for you, Adrienne, it's true for me. Like it took me almost 40 years. I started off as an herbalist when I left clinical practice. I was trained in Reiki through the master level, right? Like I started in places that I'm finally ending in. And this is by no means an ending, it's a beginning, but I abandoned many of the practices that I learned, or I was young enough to like be curious enough to go in those directions in an uninhibited way. And then I entered into college and I started clinical programs, and that got washed right out of me. It just got stuck in a file somewhere because God forbid you walk into a hospital and you start talking about energies and orbs. And I used to sit in my car and put a cloak on before I went into the hospital. Like that's what we're talking about. Talk about the dissonance that existed. Here's this very connected person operating in such a disconnected way. But this podcast is really about unpacking how much has been suppressed over the last several years, decades, in order to get back to a place where I'm comfortable enough to say, like, hey, I'm a practicing herbalist who is deepening her relationship with the plants, her relationship with Mother Earth, her relationship with the practice. Oh, and I'm a medical astrologer. And that started 2 decades ago, and it's finally coming full circle without feeling weird saying it.
Oh gosh, yes. I deeply resonate with all of that. Well, my aspirational goal going to college was to be a music therapist. I wanted to use frequency to help people be healthy.
Well, for the moment
at the time. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I was going to go that way, and then was told that it wasn't a licensed discipline in the state that I was in at the time. So then I went music education and realized that the system was pretty broken by my third year. And I was in that No Child Left Behind era of teachers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can hold my tongue in a public school district. This is not aligned for me. So I finished a BA in music and wanted to do something healing with it. But at the time, I had no idea what that looked like. I started looking into holistic nutrition.
Yeah.
Because I had this calling, this feeling that I needed to do something else outside of what I understood. And the more I denied that part of myself, trying to logic my way. I'm an Aquarius, by the way. I live in my head very hard. And the more I tried to logic that part of my brain away, or my soul away, and live in my head, the sicker I got. I ended up having massive health problems in my 20s. I feel like I lost the better part of my 20s due to...
How relatable is that for so many people listening, though? How many of you spent your 20, like the decade of your 20s, sick?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I see it in my practice all the time. Women come in and go, oh my gosh, if I knew then what I know now, or, you know, what you're teaching me now, man, where had you been when I was in my 20s? I'm like, sing it, sister. I became the resource that I couldn't find.
Yes.
But it's the more I denied that part of myself, the sicker I got.
Yeah.
And the more I suppressed my voice, the sicker I got.
Yeah.
And had this epiphany at one point that I'm like, I'm not doing anything that lights my soul on fire. I feel dead inside and I have to do something about it.
But you can't do anything about it, Adrienne. We live in the 3D world in the Matrix where you have to pay bills and go to work until you die.
Well, I took the other pill and I decided
to
inject myself out.
Yeah. By no means is taking the other pill easy too. I just want to throw that out there. I feel like social media has become a platform where they're like, just follow your dreams. Go be an entrepreneur. Okay, first of all, not all of you listening are built for entrepreneurship. Sorry, I'm going to be the big sister that tells you that, right? Secondly, entrepreneurship is hard, especially when you live in a society that prioritizes profit over people.
Yes.
And you live in a service industry. Like all you want to do is help. You'll hear us say that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All we want to do is help. And it's really hard. And you're right. Entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. But I do feel like if we step into our truth
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if we're a lawyer or if we work as a nurse or if we work, an accountant. It doesn't matter. If we step into our truth, we can do our work in an energetically aligned way. And that's something that I didn't understand in my 20s. I thought I had to work like a fucking guy in order to be successful.
You thought that because you were taught that.
Well, yes. At the time when I came out of high school, like, you were essentially expected to go to college because Title IX wasn't that distant. I'm not young, by the way, guys. Wasn't
either
that far distant history, right? And so, like, your moms couldn't go to college unless you were of a certain financial stature. So, like, the FAFSA had just become a thing. So it was like, oh, you can go to college. And then I was on the front end just before college became such a huge debt burden for so many people. Like, that's how old I am. I was like right on the front edge of that. So I am grateful that I don't have the same load debt that a lot of people even 2 years after me had. However, they are better with a computer than I am because I had to stand in line at the bookstore.
So did I.
They could access their shit online. So as we keep moving in these directions, because I grew up with, and so many of us did, like, so many of us that are like hitting this perimenopausal phase of our lives are going, what the fuck did I do? Why am I here? I feel like there's something else out there for me. Some of that has to do with the phase of your life. We'll talk about that because you start questioning all of that stuff. It is totally normal as you go into perimenopause to start challenging, like, what you've always accepted as normal or okay. But the more that we step in alignment with our truth, and that truth that lives deep inside of us, our core essence truth. And that's what I found in my own life also. And I see in the lives of so many of my clients. I've got one client right now that's just starting to kill it in her professional life because through the work we've done with Accutonics, she's coming essentially into right relationship with her essence self. And she's advocating for herself in ways she never did before. And that's putting her, like, literally in the right frequency path of all the things that she's ever wanted.
Things come to you too when you sit in the right frequency. Like, I'm starting to experience that in what I would consider a mild capacity because I feel like I'm just now getting into a place where coherence is coming into my sphere of awareness, but like little things start to drop. And what we do so often is we ignore the little things. Just a coincidence, like, or like, that can't be what I think it is. Don't ignore the little things. Like, follow them. They're breadcrumbs to the whole fucking loaf.
Oh, absolutely. I tell my kids know that I say this all the time. I'm like, I don't believe in coincidences. And they're just like, I know, Mom, but I don't. They're synchronicities. It's ways that you are being validated and reinforced that you are on the right path, that you're in alignment with what it is that's supposed to happen, that's supposed to come through you, that's supposed to manifest next, like whatever you want to use for terminology, but that you're on the path that is in alignment with your essence self, your soul.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Maybe we can do an entire episode on manifestation because manifestation really, it's alignment. And it's not like you sit somewhere, you get rid of all of your bad thoughts and you ask the universe for a specific amount of money. Like, manifestation requires action, and action comes from alignment. And a lot of the times the path to manifestation for many people is highly uncomfortable.
Well, and these are the things that we're going to talk about in this show is how do you do that? Like, not to shit on everything I see on social media, but oh my gosh,
shit on it.
It grinds my gears. Like, okay, but this is the tone of the show, guys. Like, we see so many things living in this health and wellness field, and we're here and we do the work because we genuinely want to help people, right? You're fed a lot of bullshit online, and there's a lot of pretty pictures with text that might land with you. And so, oh, I want to take this class with this practitioner or whatever, but they might be totally out of integrity because there's a lot of people in the health and wellness space that want to be kumbaya, peace, love, and light. And then when you deal with them offline, you're like, wow, this is not who I thought I was going to be working with. And that can feel really clunky and awful. And Taylor and I, what you see is what you get. Like, we're authentic, real deal, sometimes unfiltered.
All the time unfiltered.
Sorry,
I'm
not
more so. Yep.
Sorry, not sorry. But it's because there's a lot of truth telling that needs to happen in this space, that honestly, I think wants to happen in this space, but people are so fucking worried about algorithms and whether they get enough likes on this, that, or the other thing. Like, my Gen Zer that lives in my house constantly tells me, well, you need to do more in order to be liked and social media and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but I'm not for everybody. And I refuse to be a performing dance monkey in order to get people to like me.
Yeah.
If you are going to like me, you're going to resonate with who I am. You're going to resonate with my message, the frequency that I'm bringing to this, the fact that you can't miss the fact that I'm telling you the truth.
I mean, I love that you're not overly leaning into your Libra here, right? Because people who show up in a shadow octave of their Libra is just one example, or Libra for some, depending on who you're talking to. Like, you have a tendency to put, it's the bicycle for two. It's the we before the me. It's making sure a relationship is in harmony, even if it comes at a cost. Trust me, I know my South Node is in Libra. Like, I'm learning to embody the exact opposite. So I'm really proud of you for stepping into like this is my message and this is who I am, because we know you have a pretty hefty placement in your chart when it comes to Libra. The other thing that Adrienne was talking about earlier with her Aquarius, you Aquarians out there, I don't care if it's your sun, moon, rising, whether you have a Saturn, Mars node placement, if there's a stellium, we can talk about all this, but your Aquarius, like my Aquarians out there, if you're listening, one of your main purposes in life is to get in your body. You were given a beautiful capacity to be in your head, and we need you to be in your body.
I laugh because I'm an Aquarius sun and moon. And so getting into my body is a really big task. So I can tell you from firsthand experience that what she's talking about is really real.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even with astrology, like I see so much pop astrology on Instagram where y'all have probably clickbaited into follow me for your rising forecast for the month. What the fuck? I don't like, your rising is just one slice of a 12-piece pie. Like, I don't know. I know a little bit about you from your rising, but like that tells one pixel of the entire picture. Stop buying into this shit. Y'all are going to be confused. Like, yes, your rising can tell you a lot about how you handle stress and present to the world. In some traditions, the rising is more important than the sun, and you grow into your sun. Right. So there's nuance that's to be had regarding conversations around things like frequency and acutonics. There's nuance that needs to be had around astrology. Literally, please stop astrology. Like, I could give you a name of a few astrologers. Like, if y'all want them, I can list them in an episode. There are some really legitimate ones out there, but the majority of what you're listening to on Instagram is such shit. Please stop listening to it. Okay, like, there's nuance that needs to be had around herbs. Maybe we can go, like, we can rip off on that one too. Stop taking fucking curcumin. Please stop. Please stop. Go find yourself some turmeric with some black pepper. My God.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because I think that's one of my biggest beefs as an herbalist too. But I mean, if you're following me on social media, you'll notice that I don't call out herbs. And I've had people mention, like, you say you're an herbalist, but you don't talk about herbs. And I don't, because people will see one post and they will go, oh, nettle is the cure all for all of these things. And plants are gentle, but plants have like properties that help affect the way that your body presents itself, but it's energetic as well as physical. And so your body might need something different. And so I like I thought about it long and hard when I first went on social media, because there are people who do want to know like snippets around certain herbs, and that's great. But the thing is, you can't become an herbalist from looking at a carousel on Instagram. And a lot of people,
You can't? What? That also means you can't just read a book?
There are traditions where this has been handed down as oral history. You're looking at experiential rather than folk learners. Like there's just so much to that. And yeah, there's a lot that you can get out of a book, but there's nothing like having the experience of actually working with it or working with somebody that you can apprentice with that can teach you like, oh, hey, just so you know, this can be a pitfall if something to keep in mind if. So like I had a conversation with a client yesterday who started a new pharmaceutical and was like, the herbs that I'm taking, she at least thankfully asked me, can I take this with my new medication? A lot of people don't ask because they think plants are plants and whatever. And it's like, hold on. But plants are very potent medicine and they can affect the way that this pharmaceutical can show up in your body. Usually it's a dilution, not a negative effect, but that's not the point. The point is that, you know, so many people are unfortunately dealing with a polypharmacy situation. I have a whole episode on polypharmacy with a pharmacist who runs an herbal apothecary on my podcast, Reproductive Rebel. So if you want to know what polypharmacy is, go check that out. But there's so many people that polypharmacy is a thing, and then they're trying to add herbs in on top of it. And for me, I feel like I'm doing an ethical disservice just putting an herb out there and having somebody be like, oh, I saw this post that, you know, turmeric is great. Well, yeah, turmeric is great for inflammation, but if you have a really dry constitution,
or like you're hot,
what constitution looks like. Yeah.
Like we're in a very hot season. I love my ginger and I love my turmeric and I love my black. I love them. Now is not the time. Right? Like now is not the time. I would be doing myself a disservice, right? Same thing with nettles. Nettles is wonderful. It's high in iron. It's a mineral concentrator. It's got antihistaminic action. It's dry. So like we have to be really mindful of the constitution that we're placing these plants in, because they're really supposed to be complementary. And oftentimes people don't know what to look for too when something they're taking is not complementary. They immediately want to go to like the food that they're eating or some other ridiculous exogenous factor, because God forbid we take full fucking responsibility for the things that we put in our mouth, on our plate, in our water bottle. God fucking forbid. But like, we have to be mindful of what we're consuming. These herbal blends where people are like, this is for every woman with hormone issues. I call fucking bullshit.
Yeah, this is where the work that I do with pelvic steaming, I take a lot of issue with that, is there's a lot of places that you can buy generic blends. Okay, well, that could be okay.
You are not generic.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the how long, the how hot, the what kind of herbs, like you really need to know what's going on in the body in order to be able to effectively care for whatever the symptoms are that you're trying to address. And so as an herbalist, and not every herbalist takes this perspective, they think plant medicine is the medicine of the people, and it is. And I believe that. I agree with that. That is what my teachers taught me, is that herbal medicine is the medicine of the people. Yep. I want this to be as readily available for people as possible so that they can be empowered to care for themselves outside of a pharma model. However, you still have to have the right things for your body. And that can change with the seasons. Like, you know, what Taylor was saying about it's hot where she is right now. She can't use warming herbs. I am in an area where it was 48 degrees when I woke up this morning. And
so glorious.
It really is glorious. It'll be 75 by the middle of the day. It was 48 this morning.
What a beautiful, like, I digress. I'm dreaming about it.
But like I, at this stage, need to be really careful around air conditioning because it can dry out my lungs. I do need the ginger because there's a big 30-degree swing in temperatures. So like your climate affects it too. Like I have certain clients down in the southern part of the United States that like I have to very specifically tailor what it is that they're doing from like May until May to October, May to November, depending on how hot it is in their area. And then we can go back to what we were doing in the first half of the year, right? So like they literally have at least 2 separate protocols. Then if there's something that, and I hate using the word protocol, but I feel like that's a word that
plan of
a lot of
nourishment,
people,
guys. Plan of
I like that better.
I refuse to use protocol anymore. When I decided to like walk away from, people get so confused. They're like, can you still run tests? Yes, I can still run tests, right? Do you still design protocols? No, I design plan of nourishments. Like you are not an algorithm. Your body is not an algorithm. Your plan of nourishment is just as alive and well as you are. And if you're on something where it's like, you go here first and here second, and there's no consideration for the change that it can occur literally from hour to hour, I'm sorry, friend, you have been sold a sack of shit. That probably costs you thousands.
And usually by the time people reach me, and I don't know if you see this too, Taylor, they've already spent thousands of dollars and they're skeptical to try anything that I'm offering.
Okay, let me get my blue mic out. Talking into a pen, you guys.
Right.
I have literally held space for people who have worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. Okay. Like worked with some of the biggest names in the industry and spent their life savings on like empty promises. Okay. And we have to start calling forward, not calling out. We're not calling out. We're calling forward this whole notion that someone is your savior. I am not your savior and I am not your guru. I am going to be a co-collaborator in the care that we curate based off the individuality that exists within you and that is ever changing. Damn, I am on day 1 of my period and that was beautifully said. Can we just take a moment? Like, okay, like that's what Adrienne and I are here to do. We're here to call forward and we're here to acknowledge the individual that exists and sits in front of us. And if you're working with anyone that does not do that, and it's deep, a lot of the times it's like you're going to be seeing, especially with astrology and things like acutonics, I'm going to see you metaphorically naked. There ain't no other way to put it. You can't lie to me. Your chart's going to tell me exactly what I need. You can say whatever you want. I'm going back to your birth chart. Okay, cool. Sure. Whatever you say, you lie in. But the beauty of that is when we work with that degree of thumbprint and individuality, we literally, 1, know how to work with the ever evolving ecosystem that you are. Like we could spend a whole episode talking about transits and how they catalyze things, crises or healing. Right. And 2, we come to understand that standardized protocols, when provided to people in a uniform capacity, end up doing more harm than good. Lots of people are making money off of false promises that they're selling you. Sorry, not sorry.
Well, and this is exactly why Holy Shift came into existence, because Taylor and I have had so many of these conversations offline where we're just like, and this is what's happening. Have you seen this? Because I can't believe that this experience is happening in my practice right now. And we both feel like there are a lot of rose-colored glasses that need to come off, because people deserve to have authority in their healing process. But that can only happen with education, with understanding. My whole practice, my focal point is to empower you with information so you can make informed choices. And when we ignore the history, when we ignore the lineage, when we ignore the roots, not only of the symptoms that we're seeing, but the roots of the disciplines that we're using and etc., we're literally denying the full knowledge base to make decisions from. So this is where this comes in. And it's not always going to be popular. And some people are going to be like, yes. And some people are going to be like, wow, talk about being frank. But it needs to be said. the health and wellness
We
world.
live in a world that's nice. We're going to be kind, right? There's a difference, right? We live in a world that's nice. You want me to sugarcoat things so I don't hurt your feelings, right? There's a way that I can deliver a message kindly where there's no malintent behind what I'm saying.
Yes.
Right. But it's not always going to be digestible because it's missing that glistening candy coating. Right. And candy coating has gotten us to where we are today. Guys, just look around. Look around. I'm pulling my microphone back out.
Well, and it's not even the candy coating piece of it too. Like some of it is putting on the show to be popular in the online space.
Let me tell you something, okay? Like, not you that's listening. Okay. Let me tell you something. The majority of the people that have gained traction in the health and wellness space have not done so off of original ideas. The majority of the people that have gained traction in the health and wellness space are taking concepts, ideas, and information that are spoken about in small corners of the internet, and they're regurgitating and repurposing them without giving proper credit. I'm happy to drop you names if you want to send me a message too. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? So these pioneers, if you will, are not original thought leaders. Again, sorry, not sorry. The original thought leaders exist in these tiny corners of the world and of the internet. Fucking leaders do not exist on Instagram too. I'm sorry. Like they're in the community doing shit.
Yes. And like I see myself as raising awareness around ancient tradition.
Yeah.
Like I'm not appropriating, like, yes,
No,
I have
there's a lot of that.
There is a lot of that. And there's East Asian medicine background in my training, but it's because I respect the wisdom. I don't claim to be of East Asian origin. I mean, anybody who's watching this can see that I am not of East Asian origin. I just deeply respect the wisdom in the medicine, in the traditions, in the understanding of the energetics. And I feel like part of my role is to help educate people that there is another way outside of the socially accepted Western paradigm.
Yeah. Which is really not that old, guys. We'll have a podcast on that too. The medicine, as you know it, is not even 200 years old.
Oh, yeah, it's baby medicine by comparison. And that's so I jokingly say to people, 7,000, 5,000, 7,000-year-old medicine, that's a lot of vaginas because I specialize in women's reproductive health. And so my money is on the 5,000-plus-year-old medicine because they wrote the original guidebook on how a woman's body functions rather than treating it like a small man the way that the traditional Western model does and has always since its inception.
Greek humoral medicine eventually became scientific. We will talk about this. The scientific revolution did not do a lot of amazing things for the advancement of genuine medicine. Okay. Like it's period, end of report. When you remove parts of the whole acts differently, and we have dismembered medicine so severely, right, that it has now been a primary contributing factor to the presence of chronic disease and death. The number 3 cause of death in the United States is iatrogenic death. Medical error.
Yep.
Just saying, like, chew on that for a hot second. So
it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Same these. So we will be talking about medical astrology and decumbiture. We will be talking about herbalism. We will be talking about the history. We are going to talk about the history of what we know now as the witch hunt, which is really just men's attempt to overtake what they perceive to be powerful women, right? Guess what, bitches? We came back. It's been a few centuries, but we're here. I don't know how else to put it. You killed us in physical form, but still came back. Okay, we're going to be talking about elements of quantum medicine, walk-ins versus walk-outs, things for consideration around energy of the home. So this is really just a place and a space where Adrienne and I are going to bring the really beautiful concepts that we talk about in our private conversations and make them public, because I think that more of you listening are fascinated with the majority of the things that I just mentioned, then you're willing to admit. And I'm going to encourage and invite that curiosity, because once you open that door, life changes in the coolest way.
Absolutely. Well, and maybe because I grew up with The Matrix being at the top of its heyday,
Yeah.
I see this being that conversation where it's the red pill or the blue pill, right? You're either willing to accept the status quo in the way that things are, or you're going to take the other, and it's going to open and expand your perception. And our whole goal for this program is to open and expand the perception, because an educated public is a critical thinking public. An educated public can challenge the status quo, because when we don't have that knowledge base, and for centuries, we didn't have that knowledge base intentionally as a means of control, when we're able to understand and actually put appropriate filters on, and so much of history is run through the filter of, and this is just like I was saying with diagnostic tests, right? And studies that are being done, is it's only as good as who's telling a story. When I did my master's thesis, I was taking an ethnographic approach to my study. My advisors by the end of it laughed and said, "You wrote a dissertation, Adrienne, you didn't write a thesis." But I had to be able to justify why I was making the assertions I was making. So it required some historical narrative to go with it, which ended up being a big portion of it. And as I was doing it, I was horrified to see that the vast majority of the history of, I'm Franco-American, so the Acadian French people, was told by a Protestant white voice. And there was only one book in 1920 that I had been able to find in the record. And believe me, I went to Canada, like I looked for the records. And until 1920, there was no books that were written by a French speaking person. And then finally, there was one book in 1920 that was written by a French speaking man. Nothing from the female perspective, nothing had been done from a Francophone perspective until that book was released. And so I use that as an example of how history has been framed for a certain frame of reference.
Can't wait to see how they're going to talk about us.
Well, I mean, my grandmother remembers the KKK burning crosses on her front lawn because she was French speaking and Catholic. Right? So whoever is telling the meta story frames the meta understanding. And our whole goal here is to challenge that meta understanding and provide the history, provide other ways of looking at health and healing, the healing process, all of these things that are not a pill for a symptom, because this is what we've been
or an herb for a symptom, okay? Because that is known as one type of herbalism that most genuine herbalists don't like to practice.
Yes, I did a whole episode on that because I was like, no, you can't use herbs that way. If you're really doing it in true herbal tradition, you can't do it that way. But again,
there's zero vitalistic perspective with that.
Well, and that's why I don't post herb anything on my social media, because that's exactly how people interpret it and look at it. Yeah. And it's not helpful because it's not taking the whole person and all of their needs into account.
I mean, antipathy and sympathy. I'm just going to drop those two words. If you know what I'm saying, you are ahead of probably 99.9% of the population. If you have no idea what I just said in those two words, don't fucking touch herbs without somebody's help.
Yeah.
Oh, but you sound so snotty, Taylor. I worked hard for where I've gotten. Not sorry.
And
you can learn. Come learn. Come learn like we did. Come learn.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's not that we're trying to be gatekeepers for these kinds of things. It's that the intention, the execution is being done appropriately.
Oh, and just like, I swear to God, we're going to wrap up episode 1. We've gone off on 12 tangents. Okay. Like, but you think about it, right? Like, most people get really irritated too when they meet with you month to month and they're like, you have to change my herbs. And it's like, well, there's some core herbs that we can use based on core constitution, right? That are pretty like neutral, if you will. But yes, you were not the same person I saw a month ago. Like, do you want me to just waste your time and money? I can't do it ethically. I get very irritated. I'm like, yeah, this is how we have to go about this. Like, I was very clear about this in the beginning. If we are not on the same page, you're going to need to go find somebody that's going to waste your time and your money.
Exactly. It's like, as we support the foundation, the whole ecosystem changes. The whole environment changes. So yeah, of course we have to make adaptations and change and shift things as we go along.
It's like people using, like, let's just take hawthorn berries. I love me some hawthorn berries, right? But like, there are plenty of examples of this in traditional Chinese medicine too, with the herbs that they utilize. Okay. And then they're steeping them for 10 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck do you think you're getting out of the berry? You need to deconcoct that shit. Do you even know what deconcoct means? You know? So like, again, we keep saying, I know I'm going to be really honest. I'm like at that point in my life where I'm like, I'm just ready to rip the lid off. Like, I just want to talk about these things in an uninhibited way because there's a lot of misnomers that exist, especially in the health and wellness space. If I see one more fucking herbal blend for balanced hormones or gut health, I'm going to rip what little hair I have on my head out, right? Because again, even when we approach marketing that way, guys, our attention span is 2.5 seconds. We have some work to do, right? But when we approach herbalism that way, when we approach marketing that way, we do a great disservice to the tradition that is herbalism, to the tradition that is the art of medicine. And we do a great disservice to you. And that's why none of you feel better.
Yes.
There's the
beautifully said.
So we good? We feel complete on episode 1.
You guys can see we're going to go into all kinds of cool places and spaces. So I hope that you have loved our musings and what we're all about here, because we're so excited that you found us and that you're here and that you want to go on this exciting, deep dive, mind-blowing, mind-bending journey with us and really celebrate our origin story and where we began. And honestly, in a world, in a system that's broken, where we need to go back to in order to find alignment.
It's not going to be in the black screen of your phone. Sorry.
Not sorry.
Not sorry. Until next time, guys. Stay well. See ya.